Today on Locked On Rockies, another quiet night spoils another good start, and the Rockies have a reputation problem. I think we've talked about that before.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 11th day of June in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can let me know what's on your mind. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes by following, subscribing, liking the videos over there on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. If you want to help the show, that's the best way to do it. Really do appreciate it when you go and check out the YouTube video section there. Shout outs to my everydayers out there. Shout outs to all of y'all for making us your first listen of the day. We're going to dive into really a snoozer of a game last night and kind of just bring up a topic that we've brought up a little bit, but it's a reminder of why it's exciting when the Rockies are, even when it doesn't pan out on the field. It's more exciting to watch the young guys play than some of the situations we've seen. And we're seeing the young guys play a little bit more. We're also seeing a lack of offense. That's really, above all, the most boring. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Dakota Hudson's start, and I think it should be noted about his lack of run support this year to give a little context to his season. We'll talk about the Elias Diaz injury, and the Rockies have a reputation problem. Shocker, I know. Before we dive into everything today, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code LockedOnMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, the Rockies fall to the Twins 5-0 last night in a game that was actually pretty close up until the end, after a Royce Lewis home run and the eighth inning and the bullpen kind of getting in the way of things yet again. I mean, it's a tough one. What was frustrating about last night was it looked like the Rockies were going to set the stage for something that they don't often do, but when it's important to kind of keep note. When you see the Rockies get first and second right away, nobody out, and then nobody scores in that situation, that happens far too often for the Rockies, and that continues to be a problem for this team. There's been so many opportunities, not only just of jumping out early and getting ahead on the road and handling business that way, but just scoring opportunities, driving in runs, being a threat. There's really no one outside of maybe Ezequiel Tovar, I think, because, you could put Ryan McMahon in a similar category, but we're seeing Ryan McMahon in a classic Ryan McMahon slump at the moment. But I'm not getting a lot of fear. I'm not getting a lot of, whoa, watch out when it comes to just about any Rockies batter this year. Elias Diaz has been a force, batting .303, and unfortunately going down there with the I believe it's calf strain. But the injury there to Elias Diaz is drastically going to change things for that, which is pretty crazy to think about. As we're talking about Diaz's performance, they mentioned that Diaz has been dealing with this injury for a couple of weeks now, and Elias Diaz has been playing like pretty darn good baseball. It was a left calf strain, I believe, is the definition there for it, and it's something that apparently has been nagging him for a couple of weeks now. Playing through it and still being effective in doing so, especially behind the dish. I mean, I can only imagine how difficult that must be if your leg is not in tip-top shape. But my point being, and I kind of said this, I've said this before about Elias Diaz, he can't be your best offensive player. And I say that not to be a knock on Elias Diaz's offense or anything like that. Elias Diaz has been clutch and great and is a key contributor, absolutely, to the Rockies offense. I'm just saying that it can't just be Elias Diaz, because then that means everyone else is underperforming when compared to Elias Diaz. And if he is the high benchmark, then it's kind of a situation in which you're underwhelmed, right? But at the same time, Elias Diaz has played all-star caliber ball. He's batting .303. He is someone that has been effective in driving. He's got the highest team OBP. with 352. Let's see, he's driven in 28 RBI this season. That's tied for second most on the team with Ezequiel Tovar. So obviously, Elias Diaz is an effective and strong hitter, but when he is the best, you just realize that that's not blow your socks off type of offense. And when he's kind of more of an exception than the norm for the Rockies offense, that's an even bigger problem. I have nothing. I'm not getting down on Ezequiel Tovar, who continues to be arguably has been quietly the best hitter in baseball. I think DMAC there on Altitude Radio was talking about how since May 9th, I believe he's got like the most hits or something like that, or something. There's some there. You can just keep poking and finding Ezequiel Tovar things that you continue to be really impressed by, and I think he's a strong hitter. He doesn't intimidate me. But maybe he should start, and maybe that'll come as this continues to go through the season. But the thing about the Rockies offense when it was rolling during the playoffs was you looked at the core of the lineup and you were like, whoa, you got to watch out for that group. It was the outer pieces that really had fallen apart that were problems when the Rockies when the Rockies had issues on their offense there. But when you looked at it fundamentally at its core, there was a bunch of proven offensive talents on that team. Right now, I'm still waiting for a lot of others to rise to the occasion. And this even incorporates Ryan McMahon into this conversation as well. This is I think Ryan McMahon, while it has been impressive this season, most home runs on the team, 34 RBI. He's batting you still look overall at Ryan McMahon's numbers and you're just kind of like, I need a little bit more than 258, 342, 426, 768. That's average OBP, slugging, and OPS. Is that good? Sure. But I'd like that OPS to be mid 800. Like, again, the narrative and the thing and the potential that we've seen of Ryan McMahon, I feel like I should see higher of these numbers. I should see more. I should see the Rockies, I should see them dominate more in these areas, especially when I look at Ryan McMahon and then I compare him to Ezequiel Tovar, who's batting 293, an OBP of 324, slugging 484, and an OPS of 808. I mean, that's Ezequiel Tovar in his second season, being able to cook up a better OPS, out slug, and out average Ryan McMahon. And that's just kind of my whole point about the offense is there are good to great hitters, but not ones that are consistent enough and not ones that have broken out into elite level talent. I just am not sure if we can sit here and confidently say that, like, will Ryan McMahon drive in 100 RBI this year? Will he hit that mark? He's at 34 now. But he can't keep going through stretches. We keep going through Ryan McMahon stretches where does nothing in the Cardinal series, literally nothing in the Cardinal series. And he starts off in this game not doing anything either. And I know that's baseball. I get it. I understand that is the motto of Bud Black and the Colorado Rockies. That's just baseball. But on the flip side, when I'm watching this Rockies offense, I just continue to want more. I continue to crave more, especially when you look at and you consider some of the drop-offs as well, and you consider some of the players that are getting consistent playing time when it comes to at-bats. 191 at-bats for Montero, 204 average, 267 OBP, a slugging of 293, and an OPS of 560. Jake Cave is going to hit 100 at-bats for whatever reason, and he's only got 23 hits in that time. He's batting 237 with an OBP of 306, a slugging of 299, and an OPS of 605. There's nothing impressive about anything there. There's just the fact that he's a wily veteran that Bud Black likes. So my point is, as the Rockies are navigating this and as the Rockies are making their assessments for the future and what's next, the offensive woes and the lack of offensive firepower needs to be considered because it's a massive problem for this team. Mixed in with the fact that they've struck out 627 times as a team, walking only 181 times. The team average is 245. The team OBP is 306. The team slugging is 377. The team OPS is 683. And this is a team that's supposed to be playing at a hitters-friendly ballpark as well. There's a whole lot of bleh. That's really what is the Rockies offense the worst in the league? No. Are there, do they have some players that perform? Sure. But at the same time, there's not a single offensive stat that I'm impressed by the Rockies. And I don't think anyone, actually, you know what? I will give my props to Ezekiel Tovar because he has had a strong offensive season so far. The rest of the team, not so much. Got to be a frustrating night for Dakota Hudson as well. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the Rockies' reputation and lots more coming up in today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we get to that, though, folks, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes iBota. iBota is here for you as you're going through your spring cleaning. That means you can stock up on cleaning supplies, and you got to swap out all those winter clothes. You got to dust those shelves. You got to clean all those nooks and crannies. They got you covered with iBota. When you use iBota, the free app, it's going to give you cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So when you're ordering those supplies to clean up and pristinify your space, iBota's got you covered. And when you buy the new stuff to replace the old stuff, because you can't just buy cleaning supplies, you always got to buy something fun and new. iBota has you covered. You can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average iBota user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip and so much more. Right now, iBota is offering our listeners $5 just for trying. Yes, just for trying iBota by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free iBota app to start earning cash back, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's iBotta in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. We are also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is your number one spot for daily fantasy sports. And who doesn't love fantasy sports? You love fantasy sports. I love fantasy sports. PrizePicks got you covered because they're America's number one fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It's the most fun, exciting way to get on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. So what do you mean more or less? Well, take Rockies players and hits. Maybe you're down on this Rockies offense, which has been the norm. Well, you'll take less on the Montero hits, the Doyle hits, the Tovar hits. I wouldn't go less on the Tovar hits. That's just me. But you pick more or less on all sorts of categories, and you build out your sheet. And when you are ready to go, you can test your skills. Yes, that's right. You can put your skills to the test at PrizePicks, and you can win up to 100 times your money with baseball-only lineups on PrizePicks. If you submit a winning lineup featuring 4 Demon Squares, you'll cash in big time on the biggest moments of baseball's early season. So don't miss out on all the fun when you check out PrizePicks and the PrizePicks app. Download the app today, the PrizePicks app, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a first deposit match up to $100 when you use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB on the PrizePicks app. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. I am Paul Holden saying hello and welcome back into the Locked On Rockies podcast. Thanking you for making us your first listen of the day. Thank you for tuning in to us and hanging out with the Locked On Rockies podcast. Make sure that you're checking out the Locked On Rockies postcasts that are happening on the Locked On Denver Sports channel. And make sure you're firing off your Rockies hot takes, letting me know what's on your mind, just like Noah Conley did. Calling up Adiel Amador is a total joke. He is not ready for Major League Baseball and needed more time in Double-A and Triple-A. This will stunt his growth most likely. This is what bad GM/owners do that is desperate to get fans to games more so than was best for player development. Trust me, as a Tigers fan that rushed Spencer Torkelson to the MLB. Adiel has a great chance to be a star. He was on a tear in Double-A before getting the call up, but his Double-A average is still under 200. It's really unheard of to call up a top prospect with his minor league stats in his first Double-A stint. Aggressive call-up is an understatement. This is one of the most aggressive call-ups in history. And honestly, I'm still kind of for it. Like, the hesitation is there, and the hesitation is real. But let's really paint the picture of what this Amador stint is. It is a fill-in for Brendan Rodgers and just see where we're at type of deal. Why not see how Amador handles this first little taste of Major League action versus just playing Alan Trejo every day? I mean, Alan Trejo has to, again, when Alan Trejo and Jake Cave get their chances, and they are going to be given Alan Trejo, not as much as Jake Cave. They need to do more. I know Jake Cave will make a diving stop or whatever, but I want more. I want offensive results. I want more. If you're going to take the playing time from the prospects of the Rockies this year, you need to be performing. You need to be performing on an Elias Diaz level. Plain and simple. If you're not, I do not want to see Jake Cave in the lineup over any Rockies prospect. I don't. He is supposed to come off the bench and help in situations. I would rather Greg Jones get a full series of opportunities so he can figure some stuff out, so he can see Major League pitching, for us to get an idea of why you traded an interesting pitching prospect for this guy. But instead, the Rockies and their undying loyalty to making sure that they get savvy veterans into the game is beyond me. Alan Trejo deserves a shot to fill in while Brendan Rodgers is on the IL. He hasn't had his enough moments this year to at least show us a little bit more of what he can do. That I will concede. We have gotten nearly 100 bats of Jake Cave, and we just went over the stats in the first segment. It ain't pretty. It's just and that's the type of stuff that I'm over and done with Bud Black. I plain and simple. So for this call up to happen, I actually kind of like that. It's like I like that it's out there. I like that the Rockies looked at their shortstop and they're looking at the success of their shortstop right now, and they're seeing let's just see what happens. Because again, Amador is not going to stay on the team after Brendan Rodgers comes back. He's going to get sent back down, and that's okay. So to have this little experiment, for him to get that taste of what it's like to be up here against a good team in the Twins. I know they're not the best team, but against a good team. And, the Cardinals there in the finale as well. I'm all right with it. Because it shows that they're doing, it shows at least something different. But Noah brings up a good point. You can rush these things. You can mess up the good things by trying to push this too fast. The reaction to the Amador promotion has been mostly similar to that. That this is an aggressive move. I mean, this is not a move that is not a lot of precedent for this type of move. But in the context of the situation where the Rockies are at, I'm all right with it. I am. I'm not all right with the Rockies not supporting Dakota Hudson, though, because it is just absolutely, you look at Dakota Hudson's numbers and you look at the Dakota Hudson, what happens there. And there are issues. Absolutely. There are things to be concerned about. But on the flip side, he's getting no run support. Absolutely nothing. It's infuriating it's got to be absolutely infuriating for Dakota Hudson in this situations, because yes, he hasn't been great, but he kept the Rockies had a chance to win that game. The Rockies were in that game up until the 8th. And I mean, it's just so annoying, right? It's got to be annoying. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. Here's the stat from Purple Row. This is from Renee Descartes and Colorado Rockies game number 66 thread. So the game thread from yesterday. Hudson, so these numbers are a little skewed. So it hasn't added the ones from yesterday yet. But 5.25 ERA, which is now. Hold on. I got to cough this. All right. Here we go. He has a 5.25 ERA, which is now, I think I can get that real quick. Anyway, before the game yesterday, he had a 5.25 ERA. And while he's pitched this year, the Rockies have scored 25 total runs while Hudson has been in the game. That's 3.65 run support average. That ranks as the 8th lowest in the National League. Additionally, the Rockies offense has provided no run support in 4 of his 12 starts and 1 run twice. So now if you add that, the Rockies offense has provided no run support in 5 of his 13 starts and 1 run twice. So over half the time, the Rockies offense is completely letting down Dakota Hudson, which is a bummer. Because Dakota Hudson has given you opportunities and chances in the back half of your rotation to be in ball games. I mean, not every time, certainly, but yesterday's game, that was a game the Rockies were in, that Dakota Hudson left, and the Rockies were in it. And again, there are more issues with Dakota Hudson's game than just that. It's a high ERA. And this, that, and the other thing. I understand that, but that's not my point. It's got to be a mind boggle of a mental game to play when your team is letting you down. And that's got to be the pitchers have to carry that burden a lot more than others as when they get rocked and things like that and deal with their struggles. But man, the Rockies owe Dakota Hudson. They owe Dakota Hudson a blowout game. They owe Dakota Hudson a run, a stretch where they can't stop scoring when he's pitching. And they also need to score for the pitchers like Dakota Hudson and be able to generate offense, because you need to be able to compete in the boat races that you might get into because Dakota Hudson. So that's another frustrating part to add into what's up with the offense right now and why it's super annoying is, man, these pitchers, these starters especially, say what you will about them, but they have created a lot of opportunities for this team to win. And this team has let them down. There has been no staff, no group of player let down more this year than the starting pitching. The starters have exceeded expectations. They're not great. I understand that, but they have done their job more often than not this year, it feels like. And it's the Rockies offense and the Rockies bullpen that has done the lion's share of disappointing for the Colorado Rockies in 2024. All right, so let's talk about Rockies' reputation. Let's talk about desire for people to play with the Rockies. And spoiler alert, it's not great. We go back to Purple Row coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel has got you covered because they're America's #1 sportsbook, and you want to be locked in on all the action because it's prime sports time. You got hoops finishing up. You got hockey finishing up. You got all sorts of college baseball and softball and all sorts of action going on there. Mixed in then, you got all of the regular season for baseball. So that means prop bets, that means money lines, that means anything that you can think of on your sportsbook. FanDuel's got you covered. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just got to win a $5 bet, and you can get $200 in bonus bets. And you can use those bonus bets to bet on everything from the finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you all sorts of Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Hey, make sure you're getting all your Rockies play-by-play action on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. If you got Sirius, check it out there. Don't miss out on all the action. Don't miss out on all the great content they got on Sirius as well. This shouldn't be too big of a surprise to anyone, but the Rockies are not a desirable destination for players in Major League Baseball. A players-only poll to The Athletic revealed that the Rockies, not even on the list, didn't even get enough votes to make it on the graph that asked this question: which team would you sign with if contract, state taxes and rosters were not a factor? Rockies don't even make the list. They join the White Sox, the Athletics, the Angels, and the Marlins. So, the usual suspects there. But the Twins even get some votes. The Mets still getting some votes. The Giants, the Mariners, the Rays, the Reds, and some Marlins. The Marlins are getting some love here for one of those questions. The Marlins not listed on another, but the Astros, Angels popping up on this one too. That's an interesting point that Evan makes here in this point. It's fascinating that teams are more interested in going into Miami, or players would be more interested to go to Miami and the Angels over the Rockies. And if that just doesn't summarize the problems within the Rockies or for the Rockies, then I don't know what does. And that's the same thing that goes for, these other teams like the Twins and the Rays and some of these other teams that fall under the way. The Diamondbacks up there as well as a place that that players would go and sign. Because Colorado should be the ultimate factor of just coolness. If you want to just go and live somewhere cool, if that's what if the players are factoring into this. But instead, the reputation even impacts them in these what if scenarios. In the other poll, another question, same thing. From The Athletic. The Rockies have a bad, got 10 votes saying that they have a bad reputation among players. And that's the fourth most in the league. And that's only behind the Athletics, White Sox, and Angels. You can't keep being in the conversation with those teams. You don't want to be in the conversation with those teams. Yet the Rockies are synonymous with them because they found themselves in the basement all those times. So the Rockies, as they're figuring this out, have to build a desirable location. And they have to make it a place that people want to at least come hit and experience. And they need to do some damage to the Coors Field, the influence of Coors Field and the influence of the Coors Field narrative. Because if not, you're always going to be an undesirable. The Rockies will never be a premier spot to go play. You take their front office, you take their performance, mixed in with the wackiness of Coors Field, especially for those players. Forget about it. It's a huge problem. We've talked a lot about reputation this offseason and through this season so far. The Rockies' reputation continues to be a problem. Not the worst in the league. And I know that usually flies for the Rockies. As long as they're not the worst, they're okay. But this is a massive problem for the Rockies that they need to go figure out. And there's more to dive into it, but you got to go read the piece from Evan Lang there on Purple Row. The Rockies are not an appealing destination for MLB players. And in order to be enticing, I think you got to do a little bit more winning. And the Rockies are going to try to get back into the win column here tonight. Cal Quantrill leading the way for the Rockies. Let's see if the Twins have announced someone on ESPN. It is Louis Varland. Louis Varland is 0-4 with a 9.18 ERA, the 2.16 whip. He's given up 27 hits in 16 and 2/3 innings, 6 home runs, walked 9 batters. He's got 18 strikeouts. If you can't afford to get behind early, if you got an opportunity to jump on this guy, jump all over him. Rockies offense needs to come out and do some damage against a pitcher that's struggling. Those are bad numbers. I know that's not a lot of innings, but those are bad numbers. And the Rockies cannot be the team that allows him to get back on track. We'll see how it all shakes out. We'll see how the Rockies do tonight, and we'll be giving you all the breakdowns right here on Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Like the video, subscribe, and fire off your Rockies hot takes. Let me know what's on your mind. Love to read them out on the show. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB. If you need more to listen to, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs got you covered. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.